Welcome everybody to this mini masterclass with me, Rainbow. I'm going to be debunking a myth today. This is part of a series I'm going to be doing on mending myths. You know me, I like to debunk these cultural myths that keep us bound in ideas that aren't helpful or wholesome or progressive. And so the myth we're going to be exploring today, we're going to be mending this myth, is that fly agarics are poisonous and should be avoided. I'm offering this as a cultural mending opportunity because myths don't just live in stories, they live in our nervous systems and our fear responses and in how we relate to power, to nature, and to ourselves. And Fly Agaric, this red and white mushroom that so many of us recognise as being profoundly misunderstood. Part of my work is helping people remember a different relationship with her, not as something to fear, not as something to extract from, but as a more than human ally. And when she's approached with care, context, and respect, she can really help us. She's got so much information and wisdom. And this is part of a bigger series that I'm going to be doing in masterclasses on the New Paradigm Navigators community that we're opening on school. So on the 18th of March, I'm going to be doing the full masterclass on this. So this is just a mini mending myths for free. And if you like it and you want to know more, then join the masterclass. And if you want to work with this mushroom, then I offer one-to-ones and special sacred containers and group containers. But I'll give you more information about that at the end. So let's have a look at this. So fly agarics are poisonous and should be avoided. It's a common myth, right? Honestly, sounds sensible, protective, responsible. I felt it too before I deconditioned and matured into holding this work properly and understanding Mother Mushroom as an archetype, a sacred archetype who offers herself as almost like a plant elder, a form of consciousness that's more than human that can really support us at this time, especially with this idea of the mycelium as a metaphor. But I'll go more into that in the deeper masterclass. This is just an overview for those of you who are interested. So many myths that govern our behaviour are obviously actually fear without context. And fear without context disconnects us from embodied knowledge, from relationship, and from the intelligence of nature. And this might sound a bit controversial, but when something powerful can't be easily controlled, the dominant systems then frame them as dangerous, right? That's what we've seen throughout history, isn't it? So fly agarics have been demonized, sensationalized, and trivialized for that reason. But across history, practices and substances outside dominant power structures are always treated this way. They're demonized, they're sensationalized, they're trivialized. And fly agarics obviously experienced all three. None of these responses are really about safety. It's about control. And this pattern isn't just in mushrooms, is it? It's about our intuition, it's about our embodiment, it's about what I call a shamanic sensibility, which is knowledge that comes through relationship with the living world. And with regards to Fly Agaric, you may have heard things like it's deadly, it causes madness, it's only for shamans, it's unsafe. And some of these contain fragments of truth, but if it's prepared properly and come to with reverence and understanding, then it is completely safe. And more than that, it's very, very supportive. Now, this is where we slow down and we let science and lineage sit at the table. So if we have a look at the physiological response and the neuroscience of this, first of all, we have to understand that Fly Agaric is not a psilocybin mushroom. It works on a different system entirely in the brain to psilocybin mushrooms. Its primary compound, muscimol, interacts with the GABAergic system, and this is the part of the nervous system responsible for calming, responsible for regulation and inhibition of excess stimulation in the brain. So traditionally, when prepared properly and approached respectfully, Fly Agaric has been associated with rest, deep sleep, reduced anxiety, muscle relaxation, and inner quiet. So it's not a medicine of outward expansion, and it's certainly not psychedelic. It's a medicine of return. And there's many danger narratives that arise from improper preparation combined with cultural amnesia. But from a nervous system perspective, Mother Mushroom is drawing us out of fight or flight and into regulation, into mindfulness, and into presence. Not to disassociate, but to come home to ourselves. And in the past, she's been a relational sacrament, not a recreational substance. And this distinction really matters. And it's something I work with very carefully in my one-to-one retreat spaces. I'm reimagining ritual with this particular medicine in groups and in one-to-ones. And we're working with her as a teacher and guide. And in history, you can see that long before neuroscience existed, ancient cultures understood that mushrooms were sacrament. They were teachers. They enabled us to have altered states of consciousness where we could experience the divine. We could get wisdom through our relationship with them, through imbibing with them, and they would then interact with our consciousness to help us step through the veil so that we could see with full perception rather than this flicker filter system that we've got in our brain. So across the world, from Siberia to India, Fly Agarics appear in ceremonial and mythic and devotional contexts. You can see here, just in Algeria, drawings, 15,000 drawings and engravings have been found in an UNESCO site. And this is one of like a mushroom shaman with a mask on and mushrooms growing out of their arms. This is dated back almost 10,000 years BCE. So we can see, throughout history. And in the masterclass, I'm going to talk more about the Koryak people of Siberia, who have this story of Big Raven, who came to bring this wisdom of the spiritual rites. And even in the Rig Veda, the ancient text from India, we see soma, which is a red pressed juice that comes from this red fleshy plant that's got no roots, which has now been widely recognised as Fly Agaric. So as I say, I'll go deeper into those stories in the bigger masterclass, but wanted to say that this isn't abstract history for me. In my own lineage, I have Indian and European ancestry, and it carries this thread of mushroom shaman priestesses and mushroom shamans who have worked to bridge people with these intelligences in the plant kingdom. Well, it's not really a plant. Fungus isn't a plant or an animal. It's its own species. It's incredible. But we'll say more about the masterclass. So I've been in a relationship with Mother Mushroom now for a really long time. When I was 14, I first came to her, and she's been initiating me ever since. So this isn't something I've chosen. It's something I've remembered, something I've been called to. It's in my DNA, and it's also in my astrology. There's a sign, a constellation, which is governed by Soma, which is a name given to this, like god of this the psychedelic mushroom. And Soma is the name given to the Fly Agaric mushroom throughout history. And so this nakshatra, as it's called in Vedic astrology, actually governs my house of communication. So this is in my multidimensional calling to communicate about Soma. And I'd like to say a little bit about, it's a gentle critique really of where we're at with this modern interest. So obviously throughout history, it's been revered. There's a lot of beautiful evidence to show how there was this international, almost like a religion of mushroom, a cult of mushroom, or a practice with mushroom. And that's been lost, obviously. But now with this cultural emergence of spiritual but not religious people, what we're doing is commodifying spirituality. We're living in a time of intense spiritual seeking, and with the psychedelic renaissance, this re-emergence of interest in mushrooms, what we're finding is a lot of people looking for peak experiences. But what's happening is we're commodifying a sacrament here. Same with ayahuasca, same with iboga, same with cacao. All of these things are sacraments and should be taken with deep respect, and integration is really important so we understand what we're being shown, what we're experiencing, and especially as Westerners that haven't got an indigenous spirituality to land into. It's really important that we don't commodify and just keep chasing peak experience after another one, moving from one modality to the next, because what we're doing is just perpetuating the same issues. colonization, over commodification, bleeding resources dry, and just take. Not only that, if we're not integrating properly, then trauma loops are still persisting, addictions are still persisting, and our relationship with the earth remains extractive rather than us healing. So, depth requires humility, slowness, relationship, and I believe if we come to it in the right way, this is what Fly Agaric teaches us. So, my work isn't about recreating ancient rites unchanged because we don't know them. It's about building a cultural spirituality that can exist now, one that's honouring ancestry, respecting science, centering the nervous system, but also bringing us into this humble rite of passage where we've got an opportunity to build something beautiful, sustainable, ethical, and that really honours this spirit of Mother Mushroom, because she's really important to help us to mend some of the issues we face in our culture. So, as I said, she's a medicine of the nervous system. She's drawn us out of fight or flight, giving us space to breathe and feel and see. But through her transmission, through seeing her as a teacher, we don't just understand the ecosystem intellectually, we can feel it. So, this is where the mycelium as lived metaphor can really help us to understand how we're a part of an ecosystem and we've got our role to play in that. We're becoming interconnected, aware of our interconnected nature. We're becoming responsible, and we can become then respectable in our mutual capacity to support sustainable future when it comes to practicing our spirituality. But also when we come sit with her ceremonially and intentionally, we can be shown a prophecy, we can be shown information which can help us. So we're receiving transmissions from a consciousness that is way beyond our human capacity and that deeply understands interconnection and serving as a part of the web of life. And that's what we've not done, isn't it? That's what we've stopped doing. And that's why we're in this mess, facing ecocide, omnicide, about to wipe ourselves out with our greed because we've forgotten that we have a place, that we have a responsibility. So, working with her isn't about optimization of our own life and peak experience or transcendence. It's about slowing down. It's about listening. It's about stop being addicted to intensity and working with this radical medicine to bring us into right relationship in a time where our earth and the children really need us to step up. So, she teaches us about the holarchy. She teaches us about nested responsibility, relational authority, and wholeness within wholeness. And you can see here, this is an idea, the holarchy over hierarchy. This is what we want to come into if we're going to really enter into a utopia, if we're going to stop dystopia. So when we move beyond the fear of nature and we allow her in, we begin to lead ourselves differently. We drop this top-down, dogmatic, authoritarian teaching from governments and minds that want to control and have their own agenda of taking and fear mongering. And we're coming to holarchy. We're coming to right relationship with our more than human allies who are wiser than us and who understand more than we do. And Mother Mushroom reminds us that we're not separate from nature, that we are nature, and that nature is the only authority we should be leaning into, but only if we're coming into it with discernment and some real self-awareness. So we step out from under domination, we remember how to live, not perfectly, but relationally. So this work isn't about escape. Mother Mushroom is a teacher. Fly Agaric isn't dangerous. She's just been misunderstood. And if we don't misappropriate her, if we don't colonize and take, she can really help us land. After having our nervous systems completely fried, she can help us to cultivate a sense of strength and stability in our spirituality, in our emotionality. She can help us to become really present so that we can hear the real wisdom through the noise and the chaos of modernity, so that we can return to the body, return to the heart, return to courage, and then return to care and think about making our sacred activism in the world as a prayer, as a living prayer. So, I hope I've helped you to mend the myth. Fly Agaric isn't dangerous. She's been misunderstood. And we need to see that these myths, these misunderstandings, are often acts of oppression. So we liberate ourselves in educating ourselves. And as I said at the beginning, if you want to come into deeper relationship with her, if something in you's stirring and you feel called to explore this work in a held, grounded, and embodied way, then in the description on this YouTube video, you can find links to my website where you can read more about my services and who I am and how I hold space. And I work with you one-to-one with Fly Agaric in the yurt space, and I also hold groups. I'm actually holding space for a men's retreat on the 21st of February, and there's details on that on the website. And I also am offering, like I said, a deeper dive into this and the cultural themes, and around transpersonal psychology, and some more of the science, some more of the history, some more of the cultural history as well. And you can really meet this medicine a little bit deeper. And that masterclass is going to be on the 18th of March, and that kicks off our 12-month spiritual development program, which fuses transpersonal psychology, practice, community, and a series of masterclasses and very special guest teachers over the course of 12 months through our school platform and the New Paradigm Navigators. So thank you so much for listening, honouring you and your journeys. Get in touch if you want to know more. All the best.